This episode of ENVERT TV is being brought to you by the Indie Bible. The Indie Bible offers affordable music promotion for artists of all genres. For 20 years, the Indie Bible has helped independent artists with music promotion, getting radio airplay, distribution, radio promotion, and much more. The Indie Bible features the most comprehensive music business directory with over 1,500 pages, organized into 16 sections sorted by genre and geographic location, featuring radio stations, booking agencies, and more. The Indie Bible will help you to gain worldwide exposure across the US, Canada, UK, Europe, Australia, Asia, and everywhere else, all on a limited budget. To grab the latest edition of the Indie Bible, click the link in our description below.
Heavy days under the floorboards, I want to shake your bones. This December, I remember you. I want to hold my own. Tell me what's the hurry? Acting like a fool, I'm tripping all over you. I'm out of my body, out of my mind. So you were funny, so you were kind. Feel like a paper bag, at least I'm not plastic. Got to pick up the slack, I'm slipping into bed.
Hey, what's up, music lovers? It's Flisadam, the editor-in-chief here at ENVERT, and welcome back to another special episode of ENVERT TV. During this special episode, I had a chance to catch up with non-binary musician and recording artist Danielle Grubb. During our conversation, they shared all about the healing powers of music, how to truly be an ally to the queer community, whether or not they'll be exploring the Space Force, and their new EP, D. Check out our conversation here.
Yeah, so
Awesome. So let's get started. First and foremost, I want to know how you're holding up, especially with the quarantine. I think somebody on Twitter has like a countdown of how many days it's been on the East Coast. So as an artist, are you still based in New York City, or did you kind of leave New York City as the quarantine or the lockdown started?
no, I actually left New York before this even happened. So I've been in Dallas for a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's very strange here because I have a lot of friends in New York who are still very much so in lockdown, but our state is like half open. So people are, quarantining as, I don't know, as things progress and as they have to go back to work, or if, as they have scares in their offices and things. Me personally, it was hard for the first like couple months. Like March, April, the first two were so difficult. I didn't know what to do. So I started trying to implement rituals and routines. So I mean, currently it's like, so I wake up really early usually. I'm usually up by like 4:30 in the morning.
Every
Yeah, every day. And so I'm like out here like drinking coffee, like working out in my backyard, meditating, like doing astrology stuff, just trying to like keep myself busy. But I also just started a new job, so now I can go to work.
congratulations.
Thank you.
I think I didn't plan on asking this, but we can kind of touch it, or at least the surface of it. As an artist, there is this conversation of being a struggle artist, right? In order to be a true artist, you have to be struggling currently. And although I'm not an artist, I'm totally against that philosophy. So could you kind of detail your experience of how do you balance managing a career or profession outside of music and being a musician as well?
Ooh, well, so music takes up so much time, right? Like I spend, at this point, it's between like 5 to 10 hours a day on music. So I carve out that amount of time to focus on that, and that is my first focus. Um, so because that is your first focus, it might feel like you struggle in other areas. Like it might be harder for you to like meet certain needs because all of your resources are going straight into your music. Um, I think for me, I had to take a step back from um, working so hard at music. I had to like take a step back and cut my time down that I spent working and get, my day job and be able to balance those two things. The way that you balance those two things, you just have to make the sacrifices. So you gotta, spend more time doing music in certain days, allocate spaces for it, and then allocate space for your other work. It's really just time management, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and the stereotype that, well, you're not solely a drummer, but the stereotype that drummers get is like they're the worst time management people that you'll come across in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. That's something, yeah, and I used to be very, very bad about time, actually. Um, it's something I'm working on still, but, you know, trying to, I don't know, you can balance it, but it's a give and take, you have to give more here, you take less here.
So speaking of instruments, right? So you spend a lot of time sharing personal snippets with your fans, whether it's in-house or at-home performances, and you play quite a bit of instruments. I've seen that you play acoustic guitar, and then as I hinted to earlier, you do play the drums. Did you formally train in music?
Yeah, well, I taught myself. We had a piano at my house. So I started to like pick out little melodies from songs and try to like pick them out on the piano. But then shortly after, my parents did get me lessons for piano um, and guitar. And in high school, I ended up going to a performing arts high school. So I got most of my training through school. So yeah.
And for most artists, I'm always a big advocate on arts education. I think it's extremely sad that one of the first programs you'll find, especially in inner city schools or urban schools or schools that are not in affluent areas, that the arts programs are usually the first things cut, whether it's the visual arts or dance or music itself. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that just comes from like a fundamental like lack of understanding of what art does for a person. It's therapeutic. It can rewire your brain. It can make you, um, it can help you struggle less in areas that you are struggling in. It can even people use music to treat Alzheimer's patients to help them remember things because it's connected to memories and their senses, and um, I think that I think there's a lack of understanding of how important it is and how much we depend on it. And I think that um, it's really not valued as much in our country, I think. Um, yeah, I don't know. It sucks.
It
That's
is, and you spoke to this a bit. Is that music does have healing traits, and a lot of artists are strong proponents of that. Even though they use it in, like as you said, music therapy with Alzheimer's, or it's also used in therapeutic sessions for children with high ranging autism. So
yeah.
calm them and things like that. So I think music is. We both are fans and lovers of music, so we know the value of it. But it's just unfortunate that some people don't. And they are the decision makers, if you will. So speaking of struggle, right? So I always like to have conversations that are centered around music, but music does reach so many other areas. And right now we're seeing that a lot of artists are really taking to social media to use their platform to advocate on causes that they believe in. And one of the conversations that are happening, that is happening in the queer community, is that when we chant Black Lives Matter, that we are often removing or disassociating the lives of Black transgender, Black non-binary. So with that being said, if you have thoughts on it, what can cis gendered folk who want to be an ally do better, and how can they help?
Things they could do better. Well, they could just be more inclusive. I mean, they could say, like, I feel like a lot of the time, from my personal experience, I've been to events that are like Black Lives Matter events that aren't LGBT inclusive, and I'm the only person there that is representing that sector. And I feel like it's a weird position to be in, because how do you, I mean, besides like advertising that it is LGBT inclusive, besides like speaking out, addressing that whatever you're doing is for these specific communities also, just, I feel like just communicating that you are an ally would be, like, it's an awareness thing, I think. Yeah, I think that's all my thoughts on that.
Okay, awesome. So another thing that I wanted to touch on is you recently did an interview with the publication, and you spoke about seeking therapy and how it actually helped you with understanding where you are with your identity, and how it was easier for you to communicate that. So for other individuals that may be suffering or battling, I wouldn't say suffering, I think that's a negative connotation word. I would say that those who are battling with their identity and how to voice what their identity is to those around them, whether it's their loved ones, parents, partners, or friends, what advice would you give them as it relates to seeking therapy or how to have those conversations?
To take your time with it and, find someone that you trust, because it's about trust. You have to be able to understand that the person that you're speaking to is not trying to judge you, because a lot of people in our lives will, even our friends and family that are close to us, and it's supposed to be a safe space. So if you try out a therapist and it's not a safe space, get a new therapist. Take your time with it and find someone. And it's also, it's hard work. And sometimes it takes longer for you to realize certain things. Sometimes you'll realize things very, very quickly. But it's a journey, and I would recommend it. 10 out of 10 would recommend therapy to anybody.
So I like to consider myself an ally, and for those who are watching that considers themselves to be an ally, I think it's important that we understand where we are as allies and how, when taking up space, to be vocal on behalf of it, right? And not to fetishize. So I think this is, I kind of go off rails, but I think what's happening, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is as gender fluidity has always been present, right? We have artists like David Bowie, we have Boy George, we have, in Black community, we had Debrat, we had a bunch of people that were open about understanding where their gender lies and not fitting into like societal norms, whether it's how they dress, how they present themselves, what they talk about. But now we're seeing that the dismissal of gender identity and gender boxes is entering the mainstream. So we have shows like RuPaul's Drag Race and all of its spinoffs, and then we have shows like Pose that are bringing attention to non-binary identities. So what are your thoughts on that, and being mindful of how mainstream consumes it or tries to package what non-binary is? Well, I mean, I can clarify. So what I'm starting to see, and I'll give you a recent example. In the midst of a pandemic, right? Juneteenth happens every year. This is nothing new to Black people. We've always known it, and you're actually in Texas, so maybe they do other celebrations around Juneteenth. But a lot of corporate outlets and corporate companies that otherwise would have ignored this holiday, tried to commodify it and try to commercialize it to seem on the surface as if they were knowledgeable of Black plight or the Black issues going on, just to make appearance sakes, right? So it was fetishizing Black people, and even you've seen with other nationalities that have been fetishized, whether it's like Halloween and people wear Pocahontas costumes, or Cinco de Mayo, and you have people stumbling out of bars with sombreros on, thinking that that's actually a celebration of the holiday. So do you have any thoughts on, or do you have any hesitation on the way that being non-binary is viewed in the kind of mainstream media?
I think that there's a lack of wanting to understand it. I think people are very quick to say that they're an ally, but then will misgender you to prove their own point and opinion. And I think that they could do better, and they know better. Not to be so harsh, but I think that gender identity, while okay, I feel two ways about it. Gender is a construct; it's like made up, right? It's just something that we've implemented in our society, but it is also fundamental to how we communicate with each other and interact. And the fact that there are outlets who can't wrap their head around it, it's just a little disappointing. Because they're trying to communicate, right? So like why not get it right the first time and then continue the conversation, you know? That's how I feel about it. I don't know. So there's some good depictions, great depictions of non-binary and trans identities. There's great coverage. I'm pretty sure y'all cover Jimmy, who I like grew up with actually, like down the block, like middle school, crazy. Yeah, I don't know, and like I don't know, stuff like that makes me so happy when you know when trans and non-binary people get to just have a conversation. You know, it's nice, it's good. Yeah.
Well, I hope that we can continue to serve as an ally here at ENVERT. So let's kind of get off of some heavy topics, given that it's super early in the morning. To start your day off right.
Oh, good.
Let's transition into the music. So recently you released an EP titled D. So tell me about it. What was the inspiration going into it? Who did you work with?
Okay, so it's such a long story. But to be concise about it, I'd reached a point where I felt like I had said almost everything I wanted to say. I was also at a point where I was debating going back to school and taking a break from music, and then so I was just like, what are the words? What are the words that I want to present? So I was thinking about a relationship in which a lot of the feelings were never resolved. And so I kind of reflected on that relationship and things I would have said, but things that I could say now that were still the truth of the matter, I guess. So that's like the subject matter of it. I was listening to a lot of K-Tronada when I was writing.
Great person to listen to.
Right. Oh man. A lot of K-Tronada, and I had taken a trip and written with some friends in New York before quarantine, and was inspired by that trip, and started getting back into my roots of like playing piano. because for a while I was just like playing guitar, and then I switched to drums. Um, and so now I'm sort of exploring this relationship between drums and piano together. And so the EP is kind of, I wanted to serve as a study of like dance music. Um, and I wanted to serve as like this journey through, I don't know, through like when you fall in love with a person, sometimes you forget who you are. And that's really what the record is about. It's about that specific set of feelings. Um, so I'm trying to make like a study of dance that, you know, allows you to get lost, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the tracks. I know artists tend to hate this question, but I always have to ask it because I find it interesting. Do you have a favorite track on the project? I know they're all like your children, if you will. But do you have one track that kind of stands out the most to you? Maybe the recording process, or maybe the writing process?
Um, man, yeah, that's a tough question. Um, that's funny. Um, I like there are two songs that I could tie with maybe. Um, I think it changes too because I'll go back and listen like every couple of weeks or so just to see which ones I want to play, and which ones I'm vibing with. But I think it's D and Near or Far.
It's one of my
Um,
favorite. One of my favorites.
cool, cool. Yeah, I think with Near or Far, um, I had like made this bass tone that had too many plugins on it, but that's what all the bass is on the record. And I was like trying to write something that was like fun for me to play on bass, and I think that I really like that bass line. And I think with D, um, I was trying to emulate a Tegan and Sarah song.
Hmm.
Um, it's a little hard to explain, but mostly in the way that the vocals are arranged. I was trying to emulate like the way that Tina and Sarah arranges their vocals, with their unisons. Um, yeah, I don't know, and I'm happy with the way both of those two songs came out. Yeah, I think those are my two.
So, I mean, you use some really unique samples. Like, there is some super like kooky. If you really listen to it, and I hope listeners are right hearing those like nuances. So when you're kind of pulling from sonic examples, I know there are a lot of like Afrofuturism kind of pickups. There's like a cool little like flicks in the guitar, and there are some like super electronic sounds that I'm just like, oh, I hear that. It stands out uniquely, but it still fits so perfectly in the track. So, like, what was like it like working with non-traditional sounds and kind of blending that with the instruments?
I mean, that's something that I've kind of always done was like taken um instruments independently and then sampled them and then tried to play with them. Um, I think it's, I don't know. At this point, I have like a formula as to like which ones I want to be acoustic and which ones I want to be electronic. Um, I'd sometimes try to like flip it, but it usually doesn't work out. Um, yeah, I mean, you just have to figure out how much is too much of those elements. Um, yeah, yeah, those songs used to sound very different. They used to sound very, very different.
I would love to hear like your B side or your C side of like the ones that you put in like a folder like mark do not open or do not return to. But there is one theme that I kind of wanted to touch on as it relates to the EP, and that's the concept or the thought of manifesting. And we kind of just spoke about the track Near or Far, but on the track you're really talking about how do you speak things into existence. So what kind of what was the background on that, and what are you currently manifesting?
Ooh, okay. The background is so that song specifically, it's like half fictional, that one. But it is about a relationship between me and my best friend. Um, and we were very far apart for a really long time. Like we lived on opposite coasts. And then I came back to Texas, and then they came back to Texas. Um, and it's just about like togetherness and unity and, trust in the universe, I guess. And the background for me is, I've struggled a lot with my faith for like a long time, and I found kind of peace in this like larger system. And I don't know, to manifesting, to me, you can manifest in a couple of different ways, but I think um, the things that I'm manifesting right now are emotional peace. I think that's currently what I'm manifesting. I'm manifesting. I'm trying to move. I'm trying to move to California. So I'm trying to manifest that whole situation, which requires a bit more action than speaking, intention. But um, yeah, I don't know. Manifesting good vibes. That's really.
Those are always needed, especially with everything going on. We wake up to another crazy headline every day. So one cool thing that I found on your social media page is you've been sharing a lot about your studies of astrology, and more specifically, Moon and Venus. So what kind of was the interest behind that? Why did you start? And have you learned anything cool that you want to share?
Okay, so yeah, I love astrology. So the different planets are said to. Okay, so the idea is that you're not experiencing anything independent of anything else, like out here, regardless if it's on Earth or past what we can see. Everything is affecting everything else. So different planets affect different aspects of your emotions, or can mess with your intentions, or can heighten or decrease parts of your personality. And so the moon controls the emotions specifically. Um, and so when the moon is in a different sign, you can respond differently to things, or your interaction will be different. Your perception will be different of a situation. And with Venus is the planet of love, and I love love. And so I'm looking at the relationship between, you know, well, I'm looking. It's a lot of different things, but mostly the relationship between the emotions and your relationships. So, um, the moon changes signs quickly, or at least faster than Venus does.
So I did have a fun question for you. And
Okay.
a lot of the artwork for D and a lot of the promotional images that you shot were all about space and outwardly experiences. And even right now, you have the NASA hat on. So we've heard a lot in mainstream news about exploring the Space Force, right? So they're going to be trying to build it out, and supposedly we're going to be able to visit Mars soon. And you have companies like Tesla that says that they're adamantly pushing their engineer team to create the technology or the resources necessary to be able to create like this tourism thing where we could pay a ticket and go to Mars. So if given the opportunity, would you go and visit Mars for like a day or two?
Okay, this is how I see it. If there was a destination, I would need to stay somewhere for at least like a month,
Okay.
because I don't think I could handle the travel. I don't think I could handle that twice, like very quickly. I would need to like stay for like a month, um, and then return. to mentally prepare. But I think I would actually do that. I really wanted to be an astronaut for a long time. So I'm kind of down to go up there. But at the same time, I have the people that I love here. So I don't want to leave my people.
So if you had to pack a travel bag, what's going to be in your travel bag?
Mostly music, probably, like some records, or like some CDs. I would bring. This is gonna be so specific. There is this type of chocolate that I like that's got mints in it. It's like pieces of mint. I would bring that. I would bring, um, like Maggot Brain, the Funkadelic record, and then probably the St. Vincent self-titled record. I'd probably bring those two albums, and a journal and some sort of like recording device.
Like audio or like video?
Audio. Well, maybe video. That'd be cool. Maybe both. Yeah, but I mostly just would want to like have it so in case I like come up with a melody or something, I can like record it and have it for when I get back to my computer.
Working even on vacation.
Yeah, I'm a Capricorn. We do that.
Oh, my brother's a Capricorn. He never stopped working. Yeah. So, now I know that you released a lyric video for Untitled, which is also one of my favorite tracks on the project. But if possible, what can fans expect from you next? So are you going to be doing any more virtual performances? I know that you've been doing a lot recently on your Instagram. Or is there going to be any other videos dropping that they can look out for?
There is a video for one of the songs off the EP that I might put out. I have to like work it out. But so I don't want to say what song it is. But I'm gonna try really hard to put that out. And then there will probably be like a couple follow-up like double single type things. Maybe one with the video. And yeah, and then I have a band with my friend called Cleo that I'm doing also. So yeah, there's like some music stuff going on. Expect some things, but don't fixate, but yeah.
So my last question to you is, given that for most independent artists, and I can't speak to if this is applicable to you, but a lot of artists relied on performances and actually outside being open, as Twitter has dubbed it. So during the midst of the pandemic, a lot of artists have lost financial stability. So how can fans support you right now? What is the best thing that they could do?
They could buy the album specifically. But I mean, yeah, it really depends. Like for me, I was more focused on licensing and those sort of opportunities that don't actually require performances. When performances went away, but those things like don't happen all the time. They don't. So performances are the most consistent income that musicians have. So I think now I would say that we would need to all reframe and maybe go towards licensing because the other aspects of art that intersect with music have not really changed, but ours has. It's crazy. I really forget your question. I'm going on a tangent now.
How can fans support you right now?
Yeah, they can just buy the album, and maybe, yeah, That's really all I can do. I don't know. I feel supported. Like, it's cool, you know.